Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're coming to you live on the NUFC360 Weekly Podcast. My name's Mark. I've got three fantastic guests with me this week. Joel, Max, and Matt. Lads, how are we?
Good. How are we doing?
Yeah, good.
We're coming to you fresh from an opening season victory against Nottingham Forest, 2-0 at St James's Park. So fair to say that we're all in a good mood. And our first topic for discussion today that we're going to be going over is discussing, what Saturday told us in terms of where we might need to strengthen the side, what we might be doing in the transfer market between now and the end of the month. I'll come to you first, Matt. What are your thoughts on this? Obviously, we've also had an injury announced for John Joe Shelvey, who's going to be out until around November time. So has that changed things as well?
Possibly. I do feel as though we're slightly light up top, as we spoke about last week. I do feel like Callum Wilson always does a great job, and I do feel like all three of them up top did a great job on Saturday. But I do feel as though we're lacking just that little bit extra, because I feel like we created a lot of chances, but we're a lot of half chances. I feel like Bruno would love to get forward more and get involved. But the thing was, he was playing slightly deeper, and Willock did a good job. But I don't know what it is. I just feel like if we are to go in the market again, which it looks like we are, we do need somebody just to play slightly behind Callum Wilson, or in and around those attacking areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say, I said it on the preview show for the Norwich game that two of those midfielders are shoo-ins right now, and that's obviously Joel and Bruno, and that does leave that sort of number 10 spot, if you will, up for grabs. So yeah, I kind of agree with that. It would be a nice area to strengthen. What are your thoughts, Max?
Yeah, I agree. Striker and right wing still demand for us, because or we can have someone who plays striker and right wing who can switch between the two if we need to be like financial smart or something. But also the Shelvey injury, I think, would maybe open the opportunity for us to bring someone more defensive in the midfield area. We don't, in my opinion, necessarily need it, because we have players who can play in the defensive midfield role. But I don't know if I trust Longstaff to be playing, because he's better at as in the number 8, or what you want to call the two more offensively center midfielders. And Elliot Anderson, if he stays like it seems he will, probably better as an attacking center midfielder. So that defensive midfield, if Bruno would, God forbid, get injured or something, it would be really weakening to our team if we don't have someone to cover that spot really with a good resume. So we will see.
Yeah, completely agree. It's, obviously, if something does happen to Bruno, I mean, anybody is really going to be a step down on him at the moment. But it is a pretty bad step down when you consider the injury to Shelvey now, leaving us with sort of no one to fill that role naturally. What do you think, Joel? Not necessarily just about that, but also, other striker targets, maybe right wingers being discussed too.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what Max said, basically. I mean, I think if I go back to the performance against Forest, it was extremely good. We dominated them for 90 minutes, but it should have realistically been at least 3, possibly 4. So adding that sort of clinicality in the final third, it should be a priority. And as well with Shelvey, the injury news on him, who's going to be out for 3 months, we are going to be left weak, because I don't think Longstaff's really up to the level we play at. And then you're going, Willock's not going to play as a defensive mid. So I definitely think we need to bring in a player there. And then Wilson, fitness issues, if fingers crossed, but he normally gets injured at one point. So we could do with a striker who's better than Chris Wood at the very least. So I think, and right wing as well, to be fair, Miggy played very well. We've got Fraser, who always tends to contribute. But again, adding that sort of clinicality, I think it would be a position that we should invest in.
Yeah, I can see in the comments here, Black Mamba UK agrees with you there. Talking about requiring a winger, and obviously touching upon, as we all have with Wilson and injuries and such. So, can't disagree with any of that. Completely agree. and it does seem to be key that we strengthen in a few areas before that window closes. And Elijah in the comments as well, talking about being surprised not going for Werner, given that he's only been sold for 18 million quid. Don't know if that's true. I haven't actually caught up on the transfer news today. I know he's gone, but I wasn't sure what the fee is. But if that's true, sorry, Matt.
I think it's 25 million. I'm not sure that.
25. Either way, it's relatively, especially in the current market, relatively low fee for the player and the name. So yeah, I can sort of understand Elijah's point there as well. So sorry, Max, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the deal with that was that Chelsea hadn't paid all the money for him that they bought him for from the start. So it was like a cut price deal. So they paid only half of it because they hadn't paid the other half already. Right. So it was they got it on a sheet basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in terms of names, what are we thinking? I mean, if we're all, I think, sort of in agreement that the key positions are probably that right wing striker for backup for Callum Wilson, and possibly maybe a midfielder, whether that be a defensive midfielder or someone to play maybe around the number 10 area. What kind of players are you thinking about here? What do you think, Joel?
I think for defensive mid, we were previously linked with him prior. A player called Seko Fofana.
Yeah,
he's slightly older than what I think we're sort of aiming at, because we are trying to bring in young players. He is 27, but I think he's kind of that sort of Yaya Toure-esque player that we could really benefit from, especially with Shelby's injury, and if touchwood Bruno doesn't. But if he did get injured, it would need a player like that. And as well, with the 5 substitutes that you can now have, it would just be good to add sort of depth in that midfield position. So I definitely think Seko Fofana then. It's completely died down on the right wing department, but I would love to see Diaby. I think he's got everything that would sort of look for in that position. So yeah, them would be my 2 top targets.
Yeah, I think, every Newcastle fan at the moment, if we were told you could have Moussa Diaby, we'd be all over that, wouldn't we? Yeah. I think everyone's really, really keen on that. But as you say, it's quieting down, and probably for good reason. World Cup coming up. Does he want to risk moving clubs when he's, in and around that France squad? And obviously it's hard to break into. So, and obviously the price as well is quite high. I'm going to throw a name out there. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, guys, because it's a name that has been linked, but it was a long time ago now, and it went really quiet. And maybe at the time it wasn't a serious link, but I think maybe we should be sniffing around him. And it's a bit left field, this choice. But Marco Asensio, Real Madrid. My thoughts on this are his career's kind of not flatlined, but it's obviously stuttered. Yeah, exactly. But he's left-footed. He can play in that position on the right. He can play off the left. He can play in the 10, to be fair, as well. And he's a Spain international. He's got caps for Spain. And he just seems to me like possibly could be the kind of player that Howe could get his hands on and revitalize. I don't know your thoughts, and I know it's not a name that's been mentioned for a while, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
I think Asensio is a great player. I mean, what he's done at Real Madrid, what he's won, I think he's not, like you said, he's sort of stagnated. He hasn't dropped to a level where we wouldn't take him. He's still a very good player, and I think when we were rumored with him, I don't think the price was too much. Was it around 20 million?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the other thing, because Madrid are apparently really keen to get rid of him. So that's my other edge of the sword as well. Thinking about price, and he doesn't seem like he'd be out of our budget, and nobody else seemingly is in for him in any serious way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think 20 million seems a no-brainer for a player of that caliber, especially with the versatility he sort of possesses, because he can play anywhere between left wing, the centre attack mid, behind the striker, and right wing. So I think he'd be a really good addition.
I can see a good comment here from Crabsy Malone in the comments there. Asensio may not want to leave permanently, so we get him on loan if we do get him, which is another great option. If you can get him on loan or on loan with an option to buy, maybe, and yeah, it could be a good option. I don't know what you guys think, Max. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I remember the links when they came. I think he only has 1 year left in his contract, I think, and the reports I was reading at the time was that he wanted to continue at Madrid, run out his contract, and then sign as a free agent for some club in the next summer. But I don't know how much truth it was in those reports. But otherwise, I like the idea of it. But I don't think it really fits in the description of the players we are signing at the moment, because there seem to be a lot of players from the Premier League who has a lot of experience of the Premier League, or it is someone very young and promising like Bruno and Sven Botman, who they have scouted very intently and probably have a really good report of that it could fit really good in the league. So I don't know, but I like the idea of it.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't fit into that mold, as you say correctly, and that's why I said it was a bit of a left field one to bring up. I'm just trying to think of other options, because it's fair to say, I think, that a lot of the thinking around that right wing position is, people are coming up a bit blank at the moment with who we might go out there and get. So it's sort of trying to, explore it a little bit more. Matt, your thoughts on that? Doesn't have to be just on Asensio, that position in general.
Yeah, if you'd asked me that question 3 or 4 years ago, then it would have been a lot more amount of money than it is now. But we're going for our number one targets, who are with obviously Diaby and that, and obviously we haven't been able to get them. So why not? Why not be a good backup option? If he wants to come on loan and see how he is, with an option to buy, then I'll be all for that. I saw tonight that we might be linked with I've got his name here, so I can pronounce it. Bamba Dieng. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
I've looked him up. I looked at his stats, and he got top goal scorer in the Senegalese league in 2019-2020. He does start for the Senegal team, national team. So that could be an interesting sign, especially because he's slightly younger than Asensio. I think he's 22. So I'd like to possibly see a player come in like that, but I would be absolutely happy with Asensio.
Yeah, I think he's at Marseille, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm not 100% on this, but I think I saw today that the manager of Marseille is saying he's not going to be guaranteed game time. So it might be someone we could go in on.
Yeah, they're signing Alexis Sanchez from Inter.
Yeah.
So that's
fine. Yeah, definitely a good one to go for, potentially. Okay, striker position, I think the obvious one here and the only one I can think of maybe is Broja on loan. And I know we've had a few targets in France that we've been sniffing around, but that's all gone quiet. Any thoughts on that position?
I think Broja could be good. I think, first of all, I'd just like to touch upon, I think we should be utilising loans more often than we are. Like Broja would be a perfect example, because I don't think Chelsea would want to sell him straight away. But he's like, when he did play, last season, there were spells where he was clearly quite a good striker who can manage and cope with the Premier League. So I mean, him on loan with an option to buy, that could be a great sort of sign if we were to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see a few people in the comments have mentioned the obvious as well. Not for striker, obviously. Lucas Paqueta is coming up again, and there's a new rumour today. And, I think this is all kind of very much conjecture at this point. There aren't really any serious links with Lucas Paqueta. I think it's an open secret that the club are interested in him based on the fact that, they went in for him in January originally, and that's how we ended up getting Bruno from Lyon. So there's obviously interest there, but whether there's any serious links is another matter. Listen, I'd love to see Paqueta rock up at the club. Don't get me wrong, but I'm getting a little bit bored of the the constant coverage around him. I don't know about you three.
Yeah, it's like a perpetual saga, isn't it? It's obviously it started in January, died down, then picked up again. I do think this is by all means I don't not want him. I just think the whole Bruno best mate thing has sort of swayed a lot of Newcastle fans without saying too much of him.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. Because I think everyone thinks he's like Bruno. He's Bruno, but another Bruno, identical, but they're not the same person. They don't have the same mentality. They don't come from the same background. It's two different persons and two different players. So I don't know. I would also like him, but it's the club.
Yeah, seems to be a lot of flirting. It's been going on for a while now, and nothing seems concrete enough to actually grab on and go, right, are we actually taking this seriously? It always seems to be little rumours here and there, and his name always keeps popping up. But I think that's just predominantly from his best mate being with us. So, but it would be interesting to see if he did come in, because you've got Joe Linton makes it into the Brazil squad, and you got all three of them in the midfield, which would go down nicely.
Yeah, Crabsy Malone makes that comment there, and it's, it would be amazing to see a fully Brazilian midfield, as he's put it. And, if Joe Linton carries on his form, who's to say that he doesn't get called up to the Brazil squad, and then you've got 3 genuine Brazil midfield internationals in there for Newcastle, which, if you'd said that even maybe a few months ago, we would all just be flabbergasted, never mind a year ago. So, yeah, it would be quite something. But we'll have to see where it goes. I think my take on it is, like I say, I'd love to have him, but I just don't really see that much of a concrete link to him, other than, as you've all touched on quite rightly, he's Bruno's best mate, and that seems to be the crux of it at the moment in terms of why people are really wanting him. I think he's probably angling after a move, whether it's to Newcastle or not, I don't know. Purely because you get these funny stories coming out saying, Leon have all of a sudden dropped their price for him and all this. And it's like, have they, how much of that's agent talk trying to get clubs interested? The Arsenal link makes no sense, given that they've already got about 3 number 10s. It's bizarre. Okay. We'll move on to our second topic for today, and it surrounds Kieran Trippier and the captaincy position. And the question here is Trippier essentially the team captain? As we all know, Jamal Lascelles is technically still the team captain. Eddie Howe made that clear in the closed season and then the pre-season that he would remain the team captain going forward for this season, and that wasn't going to change. Obviously, he's not going to get a lot of games, barring probably an injury crisis. He's, fair to say, probably our 4th choice centre-half. I think that's very clear. I think that's clear to him as well, and he seems reasonably comfortable with that. But he's the captain, so that leaves the question of who's going to be the captain on the pitch. That was, as we all suspected, answered as Kieran Trippier when the team was announced on Saturday. Good choice, bad choice. Where do you guys sit on this? And would it have been better maybe to just cut ties with the captaincy and Lascelles altogether and hand it over formally to Kieran Trippier? I'll start with you on this one, Matt.
Yeah, I don't see Lascelles staying here, long term. I do feel probably be his last season. When the news broke that he was going to be the captain again this year, I did think it was a stroke of genius, really, from Eddie Howe, because everybody knows that the captain is, the new captain going forward will be Kieran Trippier. And it sort of keeps the group, tight and close, because if you go in straight away and you go, right, there's a new captain this season, you could rock the boat slightly, and he's gone. I feel like he's made the right decision in having Trippier as having Lascelles as captain. Sorry, because we both know he's not going to get a lot of minutes, so Trippier will predominantly be on the pitch the majority of the time. So yeah, I thought it was a great idea personally.
Yeah, Black Mamba UK in the comments agrees with you as well. Can see why Eddie has kept Jamal. Yeah, and my take on it is exactly the same. I couldn't agree more. I think, what harm does it do keeping it the way it is? If the chemistry's good, all the lads seem to have an awful lot of respect for him. Jamal's happy, even though he knows he's 4th choice. I think he's happy to be part of this club and this team and come along for the ride, essentially. The obvious comparisons can be made to Aston Villa, who have changed their long-term captain of Tyrone Mings and switched it this season to John McGinn. How wise was that? I don't know. I mean, you've got to imagine that is pretty demoralising for Mings, because obviously he's had that position for quite a while. He's had that captaincy for quite a while, and John McGinn has been at the club a long time, as is Tyrone Mings. So for it to be taken off him and handed to another senior player, it's not even like a new signing that's come in that's perfect captain material and has been signed for that. It's a fellow player that you've played alongside for years. I would have thought it's quite demoralising. And so for me, we've potentially avoided a similar situation. And if everyone's happy with that, then as far as I'm concerned, that's great. Joel, do you feel similar or different on this?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said already, basically, because I mean, when you're changing captains, it's likely you can cause turbulence in the dressing room, and assuming that Lascelles isn't going to start, that it's not going to be an issue. I think going back to the question, is Trippier essentially captain? I do believe he probably will be. He's got every attribute to sort of be captain. He's a leader. He's technically one of the best players on the pitch. He seems vocal. He seems communicative. So, yeah, I think that you'd make a great captain. And like I said, I do agree with keeping Lascelles as captain. It doesn't cause any issues. It keeps everyone happy. So, yeah.
Yeah, and comment here from Jasper as well. That's quite good. I think, pointing out that we have a lot of captain material these days. If you look at the team, Wilson, Trippier, Bruno, Burn, Joelinton, I couldn't agree more. I think, if Trippier is injured for whatever reason, the obvious captaincy choice for me is probably Wilson. So, you've got a lot of players there that you can hand this to. So it's an area that we're actually probably stronger in than we've ever been. Your thoughts on this situation, Max?
Yeah, I just feel like the captaincy right now in the Premier League is more like a formality than it is. Was it before? We, as you said, we have a lot of captain material in our squad. We haven't had that before. We have Byrne, Wilson, Lascelles, Pope even, and some behind the scenes captains or leaders more like in Richie and Fernandez, who what I've taken from interviews and such is that they lead by example in training and being on time and doing the right things, showing the way of the young players. So honestly, in my opinion, Trippier is a good captain, of course, but I feel like your team doesn't stand or fall with the captain. If we have a team full of leaders, someone will always step up to take the armband. It's more a formality. It keeps, like you say, the club like in the comfort zone. Everyone knows Lascelles has been the captain officially for 6 years or something, and that's just good to keep it going. And I'm just happy that we have so many leaders in our team. That can only be a good thing. If you look at Liverpool and Man City, the top two leaders of this league, they all have good leader material in their squad, so it's just a good thing.
Yeah, 100% agree. I suppose another name as well that we haven't mentioned is the lad who's just got injured, John Joe Shelby, who has won that captain's armband a few times as well. And as you say, Max, if you've got leaders in lots of positions across the pitch, that's only going to bode well for you. And we haven't had this wealth of leader material in the team for an awfully long time. So fantastic position for us to be in. Okay, we'll move it on. Third topic for today is going to be Bruno, talking about essentially is he Newcastle United's best import? Have we ever had a player that's made a more consistent impact than Bruno? I was trying to think about this before the show, racking my brain, going through the years, who have we brought in from foreign leagues, and there's a couple of names that come to mind that can maybe compete with him, but not a lot. I think the obvious one for me that comes to mind in terms of instant impact, but not consistent impact, which is what we're really talking about, is Papa Cisse, who came in, obviously another January signing, just like Bruno, and for 5 months of the final 5 months of the season, just steamrolled the league with goals. So in terms of an instant impact, you would probably say he's had an even bigger impact than Bruno, but a consistent impact, well, you look at the rest of his career at Newcastle, not quite as consistent. I've got a couple of other names written down here. I won't reveal them because I'm keen to get you guys' thoughts first, really. What do you think about this one, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, I also noted a few players down. So I did also say Cisse. Obviously, he came in 13 goals, but then he did sort of falter off within the next sort of couple of 2 or 3 years. And another player who I thought he took maybe 3 or 4 games to make an impact, but Johan Cabaye, he came in and was technically one of the best, technically wise, one of the best midfielders we've had in years when he came in. But I think to the answering the question is no, I think Bruno is by far, in my opinion, he's the best player I've seen in a Newcastle shirt all around. Obviously, St. Maximin, in terms of running, beating players, yes, he's a lot better. But as an all-round player, the composure that Bruno possesses is just nothing like I've seen before. And I think he's world-class. I think he'd get into every team as a starting player other than maybe City where he'd be rotated. So, yeah, Bruno, for me, is the answer, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, his technical ability is unreal. I felt like, I don't know if you guys felt the same, but against Forest on Saturday, when he got the ball, actually as well, the same almost with Joelinton, when one of those lads got the ball, it was almost like playing with cheat codes. Like the Forest lads could not get anywhere near them, and when they did get near them, it was laughable that they could hold onto the ball for 4 or 5 seconds and just hold them off, look for a pass, play it off, and away we went again. So he's the best at that. And like I say, I think Joe Litton's got a bit of that in him as well. But Bruno, for me, is just phenomenal at that kind of thing. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I've got a couple of similar names written down as well. I've got Papi Cisse written down. I've got Ben Arthur, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I've also got ASM. But yeah, going back to the question, I'd probably say Bruno, out of all those players who've come in, for me, he was already a Brazilian international. He's come in and he's absolutely changed the way we play. We dictate games now. And in my recent years, I don't think I've ever seen a player as good as Bruno. When you look at the rest of the team and the rest of the squad, you've got other players who are great, like Callum Wilson. He's been an England international, but it just feels like Bruno's that level above everybody else. And like Joel said, I do feel as though he could get into any team in the Premier League, bar maybe Man City. But if there was a player out of that squad, he could slot straight in, no problem.
Yeah, he's Champions League quality for me. There's no debate around it. I see a comment here it's a good point from Crabsy Malone. Crabsy says Bruno hasn't even been here a year. It's unfair to say he's our most consistent ever. Totally understand where you're coming from there, and obviously we don't have an awful lot to go on right now. But given the impact that he's had, I think it's a fair conversation to have. And I mean, that did cross my mind when I was coming up with names for this. Rob Davies in the comments comes up with a player that I've got written down here, David Ginola. Obviously an amazing import for Newcastle United. Some other names I've got written down here is Lauren Robert. And one that maybe doesn't immediately come to mind, but since we're talking about most consistent and the length of time he was at the club and the impact that he had over that time, in 2 spells, in fact, is Nobby Solano, who I thought was a fabulous signing for Newcastle and a great servant over the years. And I've got another name written down here, which is more left field and isn't really necessarily a serious answer in terms of consistent quality, but sort of, just talking about in general, amazing imports to Newcastle, more really for the message that it sent out there to other clubs when we signed him, as Tino Asprilla, and what he brought to the club in terms of how the club was viewed. Obviously, his impact was very, very hit and miss. I'm not really seriously putting him forward for this, but just an honourable mention more than anything. What's your thoughts, Max, on this one?
Yeah, it was hard for me to pick because I haven't been a supporter for that long. I started supporting when they were the last time in the championship. And so the incomes during those years from outside leagues haven't been great. There have been some, I could say, some Maximin, Joe Linton, Almiron, but I don't think they're on the same level, really, not yet. I had also someone outside the box and who I thought was really good and could have reached the level of Bruno when he was playing for us was Mikel Merino when he was here. When he left, he started to really develop at Real Sociedad, and he was in the Spain national team, I think, for some time, and he had a really good season like 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. And for me, during those 6 years, I had to think between. He was the one who came closest to that, but I think Bruno is miles ahead of him.
Yeah, Mikel Merino is an interesting shout. Obviously, again, not here for very long, but I was gutted when he left. Really, genuinely gutted when he left the club. We got a few more comments. Jesper, obviously, going in on that Solano comment and going in on Solano with that comment. So he seems to agree. Nobby was class from Black Mamba UK. Yep, absolutely. Dubravka, interesting shout. Not one that I'd seriously considered, but given the impact that he had and, played a significant part in keeping us up in the Bruce years in particular, probably fair to say the combo of him, ASM and Wilson is probably what kept us up in the Premier League for those 2 years. So yeah, massive credit to him as well. And a final one here, Woodgate, who, yes, isn't foreign, but was signed from Real Madrid.
Good point.
Yeah, and honestly, I remember when we signed Woodgate, and I was basically a kid. I was over the moon with that sign, and I thought this is brilliant. And I got a bit of those vibes again when we signed Trippier. It was like Trippier was one of the first signings that we made in a long time, possibly since Woodgate, where it was like, I want us to go out and get that player. You know, obviously we've made good signings in between that, but it wasn't like a player that I either knew a lot about or I just loved that player and wanted him to come in. So yeah, Woodgate's an interesting shout as well. And a further comment from...
I think I've got one that we haven't said.
Yeah, go on.
He was very good. It just came to mind as Gini Wijnaldum. He added goals to the midfield straight away. He proved to, Liverpool snapped him up within the next season or 2 seasons. And I think he definitely sort of kept up a consistent performance and proves to be a world-class player.
Yeah, decent shout. And in the comments there, Jesper's pointing out Solano, when you look at what we paid from 2.5 million quid, unbelievable value. Absolutely unbelievable value. So yeah. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Do you lads have anything more to add on that subject? I mean, I can't think of any more names personally.
I think we've touched upon most.
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's all we've got for this week. We will be back later in the week for a preview of the Brighton game. So obviously, join the lads for that when we have that preview on later in the week. But thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your comments. Really appreciate it. Getting involved in the discussion and joining us for the weekly podcast here. And we'll see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.